You know what most business people still get wrong? They think HR is just a cost center, which is completely wild because companies with highly engaged teams see 21% more profitability and 20% higher sales. So if you're still treating HR like a company suggestion box, you're leaving money on the table. Let's dig into the 5 biggest myths about people operations and what it actually takes to fix them. So here's the DL. In this video, I'll break down the top 5 misconceptions commonly held about people operations. Now, I'm not talking about fluffy cotton candy stuff. I'm talking about the actual levers that make or break revenue, growth, and whether your best people stay or leave. And by the end, you'll see HR not as overhead, but as one of the sharpest tools you've got for building a business that scales. Stick with me because once you see the numbers, you'll never look at HR the same way again. I bet you've heard this one and probably believe it. HR is overhead. Something you just need to avoid lawsuits and manage payroll. Sound familiar? Well, what if I told you that disengaged employees cost US companies $450 to $500 billion every single year? That's $500 billion gone because people checked out mentally at work. Might that change your mind? And let's talk turnover. The average cost of replacing an employee is 33% of their annual salary. For someone making $75,000 a year, that's about $25,000. Now, you might not want to hear this, but 75% of the causes of turnover are preventable. Preventable, which means you're paying the price for something you could have avoided in the first place. Now, imagine this. You've got a high-performing engineer. She knows the systems inside out. She's built customer relationships no one else can replicate. She leaves because she feels undervalued, and suddenly you're not just replacing an employee, you're losing years of knowledge, trust, and output. Now, it's not HR's job to personally keep her engaged. It's HR's job to build the frameworks and systems that flag she's a top contributor, show when she's at risk, and guide leaders on how to reduce that risk. HR designs and oversees those systems so managers can use them to keep critical talent inside the company. That's not overhead, that's undeniable value creation. When HR is dismissed as a cost center, they're basically saying that's like paying for Netflix every month and never logging in. Retention, engagement, performance, these are direct drivers of revenue. Now, this one always cracks me up. There's this idea that HR exists to hand out cupcakes, throw holiday parties, and make sure everyone has good vibes. Nope. HR's job isn't to make people happy. It's to build clarity, fairness, and compliance in a system where people can actually perform. Let's talk facts. Right now, the US labor market has 7.4 million job openings. At the same time, 3.1 million people quit their jobs in a single month. That's a 2% quit rate. In a market that's competitive, if your HR team is just passing out mini Snickers, you're in deep trouble. You need people designing compensation strategies, running pay equity analyses, managing OSHA and EEOC compliance, and making sure your workforce planning isn't a game of guesswork. Now, inside most companies, only 46% of employees know what's expected of them at work, only 39% feel like someone cares about them, and only 30% say someone at work encourages their development. Soak that up for a minute. More than half your employees are basically flying blind. Happiness is a byproduct of good people operations, not the end goal. If HR were just about happy hours, you wouldn't need them. But when compliance fines run into the millions of dollars, or when you lose half your staff because your pay structure is garbage, suddenly HR looks a lot less like the party planner and a lot more like the backbone of your survival. This one's for every one of you who's ever said, payroll can't be that hard. It's just pressing a button, right? Sure, if you ignore tax laws, FMLA, workers' comp, pay equity audits, I-9 verification, remote work compliance, 401k deferral verifications, and the fact that every state seems to have a different set of leave laws. Sounds easy, right? Let's add a layer, remote work. Today, 27% of full-time employees are fully remote and another 52% are hybrid. That means nearly 80% of your workforce is no longer in a cubicle where you can just walk over and check in. And here's a crazy twist. 23% of workers say flexibility is the reason they stay or leave a job. Translation, mess up remote work policies and you lose almost a quarter of your people. And if you still think HR work is easy, chew on this for a minute. 76% of employees say they'd consider quitting if remote flexibility was taken away. You can't just yank people back to the office and expect business as usual. HR has to design policies, training, and management systems that keep remote and hybrid workers engaged, productive, and connected. That's not easy. That's high-stakes problem solving. So, no, HR isn't easy. It's juggling 1,000 invisible pieces so your business doesn't implode from lawsuits, mass resignations, or payroll disasters. Easy is the last word I'd use. This stereotype drives me nuts. The idea that HR is just there to nod along, keep the peace, and avoid conflict. But let's get real. Who do you think leads investigations into harassment claims? Who manages layoffs when the business is in trouble? Who redesigns organizations when the old structure no longer works? That takes backbone, my friends. And think about burnout. Right now, 86% of full-time remote workers report burnout. HR has to protect well-being while still meeting the company's financial and operational goals. That's not a cushy role. That's standing in the middle of a tug-of-war where both sides are pulling hard. It takes guts to say, we need to slow down or we're going to lose half the team. And let's pull the numbers again. Employees who feel engaged are 87% less likely to leave. High engagement organizations see 31% lower turnover rates. That's backbone in action. HR holding the line with data, showing leaders where culture is cracking, and making the tough calls about how to fix it before people walk. If anything, HR has too much backbone. They're often the only ones in the room saying, this strategy will burn people out, or this plan is going to cost more in lawsuits than it saves. They're not spineless. They're the ones reminding you that short-term decisions have long-term consequences. Ignore them at your own risk. This is maybe the most insulting one of them all. The idea that HR is somehow disconnected from the business, like they're just sitting in the back, filling out forms while the real work happens all around them. Statistically, only 31% of US workers are engaged at work. Meanwhile, 17% are actively disengaged, which basically means they're collecting a paycheck while eyeing the exit. If you think HR doesn't know what's going on, you're missing the fact that they're the ones talking to employees every single day. Where do you think people go when they're upset, angry, disappointed, or on the verge of going nuclear? Listen, companies with high engagement see 41% lower absenteeism. That's fewer people calling in sick, fewer no-shows, more productivity. HR is literally the connection point between employees and leadership. They see the problems before they explode. They hear the whispers in the hallway, the frustration in the exit interviews, the tension that managers ignore. They know what's going on, sometimes better than you do. If you want to run blind, cut HR out of the loop. But if you actually want to know what's happening in your company, HR is your best source of intelligence. So let's recap. HR is not overhead, it's a revenue driver. HR is not about happiness, it's about clarity and compliance. HR work is not easy, it's complex, high stakes, and constantly changing. HR isn't spineless, they make the hard calls nobody else wants to make. And HR knows exactly what's going on because they're the ones who listen when everyone else is too busy or too afraid. People operations, it's a strategic lever. Get it right and you unlock revenue, retention, and resilience. Get it wrong and you're bleeding money, talent, and time. CEOs who still think HR is overhead are playing business on hard mode blindfolded. So, here's my challenge to you. Look at how you're investing in people operations. Are you treating it as a line item to cut or as the engine that drives everything else forward? Because the companies that win, the ones that grow, scale, and actually last, are the ones that get this right. If you've gotten to this point in the video, you must have liked something about it, so why not subscribe? Just click that button and you'll get updates on every video, short, or community post that I make. I usually do one long video a week and 2 shorts, so please click subscribe, get those notifications, and stay up to date on what's going on in the HR and business world.